Okay, here's a very quick question regarding conjugate acid-base pairs. Which of the following is the conjugate acid of NH2 minus? So we have NH2 minus, and remember, conjugate acid-base pairs, they're differing by one protonation state. So we know that acids donate a proton to become their conjugate base, whereas bases will gain a proton to become their conjugate acid, because that conjugate acid could then lose that proton to become the base again. So when you're asked what is the conjugate acid of something, you have to add a proton to it. If you want to know the conjugate base of something, you take away a proton, right? So let's just put H plus. We don't care where it's coming from. That is going to give us NH3. That is going to give us ammonia. So that is B right there. So looking at the rest of these answers, there are two that jump out as completely nonsensical, right? A proton by itself cannot be a conjugate acid, and water is the conjugate acid of the hydroxide ion, but we're looking at a totally different system, right? We're looking at nitrogen-based compounds. So water just, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But we have NH2 minus, and we have NH3, and we have NH4 plus. It ended up being ammonia, right? And that may throw you off a little bit because we know that ammonia is a base. So we might be confused. We're thinking, how can a base be a conjugate acid? Well, they're just relative terms, right? NH2 minus is so incredibly basic that its conjugate acid, ammonia, is a base. It's a weak base, but that tells you how strongly basic NH2 minus is. Now, the other options we have here, NH2 minus is the conjugate base of this species, which would be almost absurd to form. I don't even know if it's physically possible for that to form, because this is already incredibly so basic. I don't know that there's a base in existence that could take another proton from it. Maybe there is, I'm not sure, but I've never seen NH2 minus. So that would be very difficult to form. But if it asked you, hypothetically, what is the conjugate base of NH2 minus, that's what you would put. Because if this were to gain a proton acting as a base, it would become NH2 minus. But it asked what is the conjugate acid, so we have to add a proton there, and we get NH3. Then they throw in NH4 plus, maybe again just to confuse you, because we're used to using ammonia, and NH4 plus, the ammonium ion, is the conjugate acid of ammonia. So if it asked you what is the conjugate acid of ammonia, that would be NH4 plus. So those are answers that there's a logic behind why you might get there, but it involves a slight error. So those are not correct. Once again, conjugate acid-base pairs, just the difference is one protonation state. So NH2 minus, the conjugate acid, we add a proton, because if it loses that proton, you get the base again. So that one is going to be ammonia, and that's a quick review of conjugate acid-base pairs. Okay, let's try one regarding pH. This says, which of the following solutions has a pH greater than 7? So certainly we know that a pH greater than 7 is referring to a basic solution. So we are looking for a base. We are looking for a substance that when introduced to water will take some of the protons from water to produce hydroxide ions, because those hydroxide ions are going to be what generates a solution with a pH greater than 7, a basic solution. So if we're looking for a base, certainly an acid is the opposite, and an acid will donate protons to water molecules to make hydronium. And so that will result in a solution with a pH lower than 7, which is the opposite of what we want. So hydroiodic acid, this is a strong acid, right? HI, if you put that in solution, all of the HI molecules will dissociate and put their protons onto water molecules to get hydronium. So that is going to make the pH go way down. And so it's definitely not a strong acid, right? It's also not going to be a weak acid either, because acetic acid, it does have this, so HI has a proton to donate, and acetic acid also has a proton to donate. So it's even though it's a weak acid, still when you put this in solution, some proportion of the acetic acid molecules are going to donate their proton to water to make hydronium, which will make the pH less than 7. So this is an acid as well, right? Strong acid, weak acid, any acid. That's not what we want. We're looking for a base. So the rest here, we have some salts. So what do you get when these salts dissociate in solution? So we get K plus and we get Br minus. Over here, we get NH4 plus and we get Cl minus. And then over here, we get Na plus and F minus. So what do we recognize here? Now there actually is one more acid even. NH4 plus is weakly acidic, right? It will similarly to acetic acid, some proportion of the ammonium that is in solution, these ammonium ions, are going to donate protons to water molecules. So the equilibrium lies more towards having ammonium ions, but some of these will protonate water to make that pH a little bit less than 7. So this is we've got an acid in there. That's no good. So now we have K plus and Br minus, Na plus and F minus. Obviously, these anions, these halide ions, are what we're looking for something to be basic. And so here we have to understand a little bit about the trends regarding the halide ions, right? The basicity. The smaller the halide ion, the more basic it is, because we're talking about stability, right? The larger the halide ion is, the better it can accommodate that negative charge. A bromide ion, relatively speaking, is quite large. So we can diffuse that negative charge around a greater volume. It's very stable. The bromide ion is incredibly stable and very unreactive. So it is very rarely going to pick up a proton, almost not at all. Whereas the fluoride ion is quite small, and so it actually is somewhat basic, right? It's not a strong base by any means, but it is a basic enough, right? About as basic as the ammonium ion is acidic. It is basic enough that it will generate an acid-base reaction, right? We're going to get a little bit of HF and a little bit of hydroxide, right? Some of the fluoride ions are going to steal a proton from water molecules to make HF. Now the equilibrium favors the fluoride ion, right? We're not going to get too much HF because that is an acid, but it's enough. It's enough that we're going to get some hydroxide in solution, and if we have more hydroxide than we have hydronium, that's a basic solution. We have a pH above 7, which is what we're looking for. So that will be NaF, because of the slight basicity of the fluoride ion. So that's a little bit about pH. Okay, let's try one regarding pH. So the pH of a solution prepared by the addition of 10 milliliters of 0.002 molar potassium hydroxide to 10 milliliters of distilled water is closest to. So we need to find the pH of the solution. And we can actually take some shortcuts here. We don't have to do very rigorous calculations. Again, with the AP exam, they like to give you numbers and setups where you can kind of do it in your head. So 0.002 molar potassium hydroxide, we've got 10 milliliters of it, and we're going to add that to 10 milliliters of distilled water. So we're diluting it by a factor of 2, right? We're doubling the volume, but we're not adding any more solute, right? We're doubling the volume of the solution. So we're cutting the concentration in half. So from 10 milliliters to 20 milliliters, right? 10 and 10 is 20. So if we can understand that, if we can rationalize that, all we have to do is go, all right, cut it in half. So that's 0.001 molar potassium hydroxide, right? We cut it in half, diluted by a factor of 2. So if we have that, this is this is the concentration of hydroxide. Right, because potassium hydroxide, there's one hydroxide per formula unit. So 0.001 molar potassium hydroxide means 0.001 molar hydroxide ions, right? And that is, let's put this in a different form. This is 10 to the negative 3, right? Or 1 times 10 to the negative 3, because that would be 1, 2, 3, right? So this is 10 to the negative 3 molar, or 1/1000th molar, right? And so we know that we can go from the hydroxide ion concentration to the POH very easily, right? Because POH is the negative log of the hydronium ion concentration. And so the negative log of 10 to the negative 3, right? The log of 10 to the negative 3 is negative 3. And then the negative of that is 3. So they gave you nice and easy numbers where we can do this in our head, right? Because so log, remember the rules of logs, right? We're talking about what do you raise 10 to get 10 to the negative 3? Well, 10 to the negative 3 is 10 to the negative 3, right? And then the negative sign there gets rid of that negative sign, so we have 3. Then we also know that pH plus POH equals 14, right? So that means that pH equals 14 minus 3, which is 11, right? 14 minus 3, which is the POH we just calculated, that's going to be 11. So that's that right there. So all we did was rationalize that we were diluting by a factor of 2, so we have to cut this in half. And then we got the POH, and then we used that to get the pH. So pretty straightforward, just a little bit of critical thinking in there as well, but that's a nice one regarding pH. Okay, we have a quick problem here on pH and POH. So we're looking at the Kw for water, and at 0 Celsius, that is 1 times 10 to the negative 15. And it wants to know the POH of water at that temperature. So what does Kw mean? Kw is our hydronium concentration times hydroxide concentration, right? That's the definition of Kw. And so for pure water, these are going to be equal, right? And so what that means is to get either hydronium or hydroxide concentration, we just need to take the square root of the Kw. So if you go ahead and put that into a calculator, we can just take the square root of that, and what we would get is 3.16 times 10 to the negative 8. Okay, so that is the hydroxide. That is the concentration of both hydronium and hydroxide at that temperature. And to get the POH, remember that is just going to be negative log of the hydroxide ion concentration. And if we do that, we are just going to get 7.5. You plug that into the calculator, take the log of this, and then get the negative of that. That is going to be 7.5. So that will be the answer right there. This was a pretty quick one. We just had to know the definition of Kw as the product of hydronium and hydroxide ion concentrations. And so that means we can take the square root of the Kw to get the hydroxide ion concentration, and then just take the negative log of that to get the POH. So that is that one. Okay, let's take a look at a titration problem. This is actually a really straightforward one. So it says we have an antacid tablet containing magnesium hydroxide, and we've got the molar mass, is titrated with a 0.1 molar solution of nitric acid. So the endpoint is determined by using an indicator. So remember, when we do the titration, the indicator, it's the substance that glows a certain color that lets us know that the neutralization is complete. So based on the data in the table above, what was the mass of the magnesium hydroxide in the antacid tablet? So we're trying to find a mass of magnesium hydroxide, and this is our data. So we were titrating this base with an acid, and the data we get is volume. It's volume based, right? We've got our burette. We're letting the acid into the analyte, and these are our readings, initial and final. So how much did we put in there? Well, let's subtract. They gave us some really nice and easy numbers. So that is going to be exactly 20 milliliters. We added 20 milliliters. And let's go ahead and convert that into liters. We've got 0.02 liters, right? We're going to go 1, 2, 3, move that decimal place 3 times to get that into liters. So we added 0.02 liters of acid. And so we want to get moles, right? Because what we're the indicator, right? That point right there, where the indicator is telling us that the neutralization has taken place, where we want to have moles. We're comparing a number of moles, not volume, right? Because these solutions have different concentrations, and so let's convert this. We've got 0.02 liters times 0.1 moles per liter. So all we do is we're going to move that decimal place one more time. And so that means that we added 0.002 moles of nitric acid, right? That's what we did to get to this equivalence point. That's how much acid was required to get to the equivalence point. So again, the equivalence point is where precisely the amount of moles of the titrant were added to exactly neutralize the analyte. And so let's take a look at the analyte. So we've got this, right? We've got magnesium hydroxide. The thing that's important to understand is we've got 2 hydroxides per formula unit of this substance, right? And nitric acid is monoprotic. We've got 1 proton. So the thing is, we're going to need to add twice as many moles of the acid as we have base in there to achieve the neutralization, because each formula unit of magnesium hydroxide needs 2 protons, right, to get 2 water molecules. And so what we need to understand is that our 0.002 moles of acid corresponds with half as many moles of base, right? We've actually got 0.001 moles of base in there, because again, for every mole of base, we are going to need twice as many moles of acid, because we need 2 protons for every 1 formula unit, because there are 2 hydroxides in magnesium hydroxide. So we're basically there. What we just did is we figured out that there's 0.001 moles of base in the antacid tablet. So 0.001 moles times, we're given the molar mass, right? We have 58.3 grams per mole. So we're just taking that molar mass and we're getting 1,000th of it. And that is 0.0583 grams. So surprisingly, they did not give you the option. If I was making this, I would have put a trick answer for someone who forgot to check that stoichiometric ratio and didn't realize that it was 2 to 1. Because if you just took it as being 1 to 1, you could think, oh, I put in 0.002 moles of acid, so there was 0.002 moles of base, right? Perfect neutralization, exactly the same number of moles. But in fact, it was that 2 to 1 ratio. Here, they gave you different orders of magnitude of that, in case you weren't sure, in case you slipped up on, maybe you didn't convert milliliters to liters, or you fumbled this going from liters to moles, or whatever it is. But anyway, we did this calculation. We got this answer. That's going to be the answer. So this was a very straightforward review of titration principles.